Andreas is clearly very meticulous when it comes to hyper-automating business processes to increase workforce efficiency. But so far, we've only explored the benefits. Does such a hardcore approach bring any negatives too? Surely there are some instances where hyper-automation simply can't or shouldn't be applied.
Yes, for sure. Most of the time, this is happening if you're not taking resistance really serious, like in the workforce, because not everyone has my kind of approach to automation. There is also the opposite, where people are not really happy. I can't really persuade everyone into that's the best, but at least you can talk with them and putting the fear a little bit aside by telling them, let's put it the other way around. Automation is a necessity and not a cost reduction program. The reason behind, yes, at the very end, automation has to have an ROI and a positive impact on the company, but this does not mean a reduction in the workforce. Positive ROI is already there if the existing workforce can do better jobs, more reliable, and they are not leaving your company. There is already an extreme high ROI just by a workforce not leaving, because you don't have to rehire, get the expertise to the workforce again, for instance. Automation is always there. But those are, so that's from my side, the very first beginning where it's not working. And also the pullback resistance is also coming if your automations are not working in a reliable way. Meaning you're spending way too much time on maintenance. And this does not really, if I'm talking now about maintenance, it does not mean just on a technical level. We are also talking about maintenance in terms of talking with the business. Like, for instance, the process, we have to redesign the process every week. At some point, they are not keen in seeing you and talking again over the thing because it's simply not working. There are some certain limitations. And I think the third one is really if you focus on the technology. If you just want to use the hammer for every problem, so in this case, for instance, one certain technology use RPA, BPMS, I don't, you name it, it's always the same, but this has a huge impact because you're trying then to fit everything into the one technology, even though it does not make sense. Biggest challenge is at the same time, even I do want to automate everything, you always have to say no to things which are not making sense. Don't try to do everything, but that's a call we don't have to do on our own. That's also a call basically we have to do together with the business units in showing them what's the impact of doing this or what's the non-impact if you're doing stuff. For instance, yes, we could develop this and this costs the amount of X euro. Actually, you're getting yourself more troubles than a benefit, but we could do it. But at some point, they are also then saying, okay, this does not make sense, but it was great at least to challenge the status quo. And I think once again, the biggest impact on automation and all the stuff we're doing is actually by not doing the stuff. So at the very beginning, avoiding it.
Interesting.
Andreas, you've mentioned a lot about people. And even in what you were just saying there about ChatGPT, and I was giggling away because I completely agree. And the main thing that I'm definitely picking up, forgive me if I'm wrong here, is you seem to have a real focus on people and their effect. So when you were talking about ChatGPT there, you could just take the answer it gives you, but unless you've got the right personnel and the right people to understand that information, you're at a huge risk there, aren't you, of producing potentially the wrong thing. We've spoken in a previous conversation about digital transformation, and I know that's something that obviously you're very passionate about and that you're a big part of your role. I think your approach, and I'm sure Marcel will agree, on that people are a huge part of that, consumers, customers and personnel. But what do you think is the biggest challenge with delivering advancement, into digital transformation is going to be, like merging the people with the technology? What do you think is the biggest challenge in that?
I think the biggest challenge is that this is not a 0 to 100. It's really a transition and a transformation over time. So what does this mean? It's like in a typical development kind of effort, when you want to get to a proper user experience or customer experience, you are going to increase the level over time. You're not building 100% of the features, then putting it out and then being surprised that no one is using it. You want to learn on the way, basically. And that's exactly what we have to, why it's called digital transformation. We need to make some certain parts, like for instance, GPT. Nowadays, at least let them play around, preparing stuff for them, for instance, helping them, assisting at the very beginning. Then they can take it from there to a next level. So it's a little bit, use it now for preparation. And maybe in the next step, training the people how to implement your own data and rely more and more on the technology. So don't assume that by just having a technology or a use case or a service, that it has to be the one thing to rule them all from tomorrow onwards. It's really a transition into the new way of working. We still have to deliver ongoing revenue streams by changing business models, for instance. But you still have to play both worlds. There is not just one. There is not just current revenues, and then tomorrow there's the new business model and new revenues. There's something in between. And exactly that's what we have to. It's an evolvement. I think that's a little bit the challenge. This is not a typical IT project where I say that's the starting point. Those are the requirements I need to develop. And at the end, I'm done. Yes, at the end you are done, but you can't really have the milestone and saying, and then my transformation is done.
That is a tough one. That is a tough one, definitely.